When the Hill case closed in 2021, everyone thought it was over. Elaine Hill was dead. Daniel Hill was buried. And Jason Hill, now Jason Voss, disappeared into a quiet new life under witness protection. But 2 years later, an investigative journalist opened a sealed FBI folder that changed everything. Because inside that file was something no one expected. Evidence suggesting Elaine and Daniel hadn't acted alone. Someone had been controlling them. And if the documents were real, the case everyone thought was solved wasn't even close. His name was Elliot Crane, an independent journalist known for chasing the stories no one else would touch. He'd covered political corruption, cold cases, missing persons. But when he stumbled on a box of leaked case files labeled Hill Investigation, Classified Appendix B, he knew he'd found something different. It wasn't just a murder case, it was a pattern. In his first podcast episode, The Hill Deception, Elliot played a clip from a call he claimed came from an anonymous FBI insider. Voice distorted, "You think Elaine acted alone? Look deeper. The hospital wasn't just where she worked, it's where it started." That clip went viral overnight. Within days, Elliot received an unmarked envelope at his doorstep. Inside, a flash drive, a note, and a single sentence written in neat cursive. "Check patient file number 2179, St. Vincent's Hospital." Elliot went straight to St. Vincent's Hospital in Detroit, where both Elaine and Dr. Leonard Voss had worked years before. He requested access to archived patient records. The clerk hesitated. "That file's restricted," she said. "No reason given. It's just gone." But when Elliot pulled up the digital index, something jumped out. Between files 2178 and 2180, there was a gap. File 2179 didn't just vanish. It had been manually deleted. Metadata showed the deletion took place in 2010, the same year Daniel Hill supposedly died. Elliot's next step was to trace who had access. Only 2 employees matched: Elaine Hill and Dr. Leonard Voss. 2 weeks later, a retired hospital janitor reached out after hearing Elliot's podcast. He said he'd found something years ago, a security tape from the hospital basement that never made it into evidence. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Timestamp, March 3, 2010. The same day file number 2179 was deleted. Elaine Hill can be seen pushing a medical cart into a restricted ward. Following her, a man in a dark coat and baseball cap. The frame freezes briefly as they turn a corner. Then a second later, the man looks up at the camera. It's Daniel Hill, alive. Weeks after his supposed death in the crash. But it wasn't just that he was alive, he was wearing an ID badge. A hospital badge. One with the name, Patient 2179. When Elliot dug deeper into St. Vincent's layout, he found that the hospital had a restricted psychiatric wing closed in 2012, codenamed Ward C. On blueprints, it didn't exist. On payroll, no one worked there. But security contractors confirmed that a wing with that designation was operational as early as 2008. And several employees who once rotated there had since vanished or resigned under medical leave. One of them, a nurse named Carla Morton, had left a single review online before disappearing. Ward C isn't for patients. It's for experiments. Elliot's investigation caught the attention of a former FBI behavioral analyst, Dr. Henry Walsh, who had worked briefly on the reopened Hill case before being reassigned. Walsh agreed to meet, off the record. He brought a thick folder stamped classified, internal use only. Inside were psychological reports, signed under Elaine Hill's name, dated between 2008 and 2010. But these weren't evaluations, they were instructions. Each document was titled Behavioral Conditioning, Subject 209. Walsh told Elliot that EH referred to Elaine Hill, and that conditioning meant she was part of an ongoing psychological experiment targeting medical personnel. The program's code name? Project Mercy. According to Walsh, Project Mercy was an early 2000s behavioral research initiative funded by a private contractor through the FBI. Its supposed goal? To study how trauma and suggestion could alter long-term memory and morality. Participants were often nurses, doctors, or emergency staff, people accustomed to life or death situations. But something went wrong. Walsh claimed several participants began exhibiting severe psychological breaks, hallucinations, paranoia, violent episodes. Elaine Hill was reportedly one of the first to lose coherence. In one report she'd written, "They told me to forget the real mother. They said he'd never remember. I hear them at night. I still do." Between 2009 and 2013, 4 medical professionals from St. Vincent's were declared mentally unfit for duty. 3 were institutionalized. 2 later died under mysterious circumstances. 1. Dr. Leonard Voss abruptly resigned and moved his family out of state. When Elliot tracked him down for comment, Voss refused to speak on record. But off camera he admitted something chilling. There were nights Elaine wouldn't recognize herself. She'd wake up in a room that wasn't hers, claiming voices told her what to do. They wanted her to protect the boy. Elliot asked who they were. Dr. Voss hesitated, then whispered, "Whoever was running Project Mercy." And Daniel wasn't just a victim. He was one of them. The deeper Elliot dug, the clearer the picture became. Project Mercy wasn't just about observing behavior, it was about controlling it. Participants were unknowingly subjected to long-term psychological conditioning, reinforced through sleep deprivation, microdoses of experimental sedatives, and audio suggestion loops. Records showed that Daniel Hill, a high school history teacher, had volunteered for a government-funded psychological resilience study during the 2008 recession to supplement his income. That study was later linked to the same research group funding Project Mercy. Elaine and Daniel, 2 seemingly ordinary people, had both been manipulated from opposite sides of the same experiment. Elliot obtained leaked audio tapes from a whistleblower claiming to have worked on Project Mercy's technical team. On one tape, a woman's voice, calm, clinical, can be heard guiding someone through hypnosis. "You are not yourself. You are protecting him. You will not remember her." A man responds, voice trembling. Who is she? She doesn't matter anymore. The boy is yours now." The tape ends with a chilling final line from the doctor. "Memory is mercy." Elliot's next discovery was even more disturbing. A cluster of phantom medical records showed a series of child patients born between 2005 and 2009, all sharing similar birth details, same hospital, nearly identical ID patterns. But none of these children appeared in census data or school registries. One of the missing birth certificates? Jason Hill's. Cross-referencing dates, Elliot realized something horrifying. Jason wasn't just part of Elaine's lie, he might have been part of the experiment itself. In February 2023, Elliot Crane announced that he had secured proof of government involvement, encrypted files allegedly showing payments from a shell company to St. Vincent's Hospital. He promised to release them in his next episode. He never did. That morning, Elliot's car was found abandoned on Highway 17, engine still running, doors locked, and his phone smashed on the pavement. His laptop was gone. And in the passenger seat, police found a handwritten note. They said mercy isn't forgiveness. It's silence. After Elliot's disappearance, his podcast producer, Riley Nash, released what remained of his backup drives. Most of the data was corrupted. But one recovered PDF file contained a heavily redacted FBI memorandum. Subject, Operation Mercy, Incident Debrief. Following behavioral containment failure, primary subjects DH209, DH214, neutralized. Secondary asset JH301, relocated. Observation continues. Neutralized. Relocated. Observation continues. It was as if the entire Hill family had been part of an ongoing case study, not victims but test subjects. 6 months later, local news in Michigan obtained leaked footage from a traffic camera outside a rest stop. The timestamp read April 12, 2024. The image showed a man in a gray hoodie buying coffee. He looked older, thinner, but unmistakable. It was Elliot Crane. In his hand he held a small notebook. Security footage from minutes later showed him leaving, followed by a woman in a hospital uniform. The frame glitched as she looked directly into the camera. The uniform name tag read, Hill. 2 weeks after that footage surfaced, Jason Voss received an anonymous package at his apartment in Portland. Inside was a burner phone. When he turned it on, there was one video file. The footage opened in a dark motel room. Elliot Crane sat facing the camera, pale, exhausted. He whispered, "Jason, they're watching both of us. Project Mercy never ended. It just changed names. You were never supposed to exist. But someone wanted you to." He leaned forward, holding up a torn hospital form labeled Patient JH301, Jason's supposed code number. "I found your mother. But she's not the same. And she's not alone." A loud noise interrupted him, the door bursting open. The camera tilted. Screams. Then silence. Days later, a short clip appeared online before being taken down by authorities. It showed Elaine Hill, unmistakably older, gaunt, her eyes unfocused, sitting in what looked like a psychiatric cell. "They told me I had to protect him," she said softly. "They said he wasn't mine, but he was important." More than I knew. Daniel didn't die in that cabin. He was taken. They used him to keep me quiet. Every time I tried to remember, they made me forget. They'll come for Jason next. The video ended with her whispering. Mercy was never about saving lives. It was about erasing them. Investigators analyzing the footage noticed a strange symbol scratched into the wall behind Elaine. 3 interlocking rings surrounding a single line. Digital forensics traced the same symbol to archived FBI logos used by Project Eden, a discontinued behavioral study from the late 1990s. Project Eden's mission? Ethical manipulation of human memory to enhance compliance. When merged, Project Eden's surviving data reportedly became part of Project Mercy, meaning Elaine and Daniel were never random test subjects. They were chosen because of Jason. In 2025, a private genetics lab reviewing the Hill case for a documentary made a shocking discovery. When comparing Jason's DNA to Dr. Leonard Voss, the supposed biological father, they found a 97% match and a 3% anomaly linked to synthetic genome editing markers. In plain terms, Jason's DNA showed signs of laboratory modification, fragments typically found only in experimental medical trials. Someone had altered his genetics before birth. But why? The only clue came from a declassified document under Project Mercy's goals. Subject Generation 3, immunity to psychological degradation under repeated suggestion. Jason wasn't just a victim. He was proof that the experiment worked. A year later, Jason released a single public statement through his lawyer. "I've seen enough to know my parents were victims. Whatever Project Mercy was, it didn't end with them. If you're watching this and you worked at St. Vincent's, you know who you are. I'm not hiding anymore." 2 weeks later, his apartment was found empty. The only item left behind was a cassette tape labeled Elliot, Draft 2. When investigators played it, a voice echoed faintly through static. "You can't bury the truth. You can only teach it to forget." Then, a sound like someone whispering Jason's name. Today, all official records of Project Mercy are sealed under national security classification. The FBI denies it ever existed. St. Vincent's Hospital was quietly demolished in 2024, citing structural decay. But whistleblowers continue to send fragments to journalists worldwide. Photos, reports, chemical logs. Every document bears the same signature, E.H. Experts argue it could be anyone. Others claim Elaine never died, that her suicide was staged. Another disappearance orchestrated to erase the truth. One document recovered from the rubble of St. Vincent's contained a chilling handwritten note. Phase 2 initiated. Subjects relocated under civilian cover. Whether it was a government experiment, a delusion, or something far darker, no one can say for sure. But one fact remains: every person connected to the Hill case either vanished, died mysteriously, or lost their memory. The final podcast episode from Elliot Crane, uploaded automatically after his disappearance, ends with his voice trembling, barely audible over static. The truth isn't buried in graves or files. It's in what they leave behind, the people who can't remember why they're afraid. He pauses. And if you ever wake up one night hearing someone whisper your name from the dark, ask yourself one question. A long silence follows. Then the final line. Who taught you to forget? Project Mercy was never shut down. It simply changed its name. And if the rumors are true, it's still recruiting.